Man, we were at Sam's the other day, and Sam's Club now has 85 and 90s. And I'm like, at 90 inches, I'm just going to buy a projector at that point in time.
It's pretty big.
It is, because a projector screen is like 120, so it's not much bigger, and the price is like relatively similar.
True.
I've got plugins right there, and I could drop a projector so fast. I want to.
Might not be a bad idea.
Thinking about it.
Find a sponsor.
Ooh-wee.
Hello, Samsung.
Oh,
So glad that you're here today.
That was one of my dad jokes that were,
What, Samsung?
well, that was the punchline.
Oh.
I'm not going to give that one because it's too fresh on the dome. But
Oh.
So I think our dad jokes are catching on.
Mm-hmm.
Because
With some people.
at least one listener sent me a private message and said, Jared, I have more material for you.
That's one life changed.
I think we're onto something.
Mission accomplished. Y'all have a good year.
Think we're onto something there. Welcome back to Faith in Frames. I'm going to tell Garrett a good
Hello.
joke here. Good joke because I think it's a good joke, and if you don't think so, then I don't know what to do for you.
I'm not allowed to say it anymore. My wife reprimanded me for saying my punchline.
Oh, well, y'all don't think you're going to know this one.
Okay.
I went to a bookstore, saw a book titled How to Solve 50% of Your Problems. I bought 2 of them.
Ah, very nice.
Now 100% of my problems are solved.
Very nice.
See what I did there?
That's what we refer to as girl math, folks. I know girl math is big right now.
It's also not math.
Well, I mean, it's debatable. There's
mathematics involved there. It sounds like that Common Core type stuff.
Yeah, there's certainly some attempts at solving equations. Now, whether or not the outcome of those attempts are correct,
Yeah, provable.
I don't know.
Provable. I mean, show your work.
Well, I mean, for example, if I buy $100 worth of merchandise at, let's just say, Target, and that's Target for you non-sophisticated people.
Yep.
If I buy $100 worth of product, take back $50, and they give me a $50 gift card, and then I spend that $50, it's almost as if I've only spent $50, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works.
Exactly. That's girl math. Okay. Anyways.
I mean, yeah, the logic there's it's.
I've seen so many lately.
I would almost argue that it's not there. The logic
I guess. It makes them feel good.
makes them feel good. All right, well, at least there's that. Hope you feel good here in 2024.
Brought to you by Faith and Frames. Good feelings and proper math. Thank you.
Absolutely. We've got a cool guest today,
We do.
a local staple
Yeah.
in the community.
Too kind.
Wait till his intro comes, and it's
Oh, you've got a good intro for him?
the list of accolades.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no.
No less than 3 miles long.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited.
No less than.
I'm excited.
I'm pumped. This is going to be a fun episode today.
We'll bring him on after the break, but first, let's thank our sponsor.
Our sponsor for today's episode of Faith and Frames, episode 3 of season 2, none other than Animals West of Greenville, Tennessee. At Animals West, your pets are our passion. Our dedicated team offers personalized care, advanced treatments, and a warm, loving environment. Because at Animals West, every tale tells a story. Tony, Amanda, the crew down on the Newport Highway, thank you for sponsoring Faith and Frames. Thank you for sponsoring me and Jared here at Motion Creative Media. Folks, what was it I said in one of the episodes? Take your felines, canines, bovines, equestrians. Probably just the first 2. But take them to Tony and Amanda down at Animals West. They'll get you fixed up.
Yep. More importantly, they'll get your
Animals
animals
fixed up.
You probably don't need to go there to get fixed up.
Yeah. Although, there could be an argument made. Anyways, thank you, Tony, Amanda, and Animals West.
Taking care of these animals.
Jared, meat and taters. Get us to the meat and taters this morning. We have a guest.
We do have a guest. None other than local store owner, pastor. You're gonna have to take the rest of this. 3
Store
mile
owner. Well, let me back it up. I'm going to go down the chronological list because the first meeting that I had with this fellow, this fine gentleman, was at the gym many years ago.
Okay.
So I'm going to say former gym goer,
Right.
still probably a current gym, could be a current gym goer, pastor, small business owner, antique aficionado, car lover, YouTube sensation, an overall good guy.
Yeah.
Mr. EJ.
You're too
EJ
kind.
Swatsell.
You're too kind, guys.
How are you this morning, sir?
I'm very well. I'm caffeinated. I'm among good friends.
Beautiful.
All is well.
Beautiful.
All is well.
That's what we like to hear.
Yes. Glad to have you on this morning. Again,
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
I've said it a million times. I don't know how we get high profile guests on this production here. Just somebody feeling sorry for us poor saps again, but I'm excited nonetheless.
Might be the Lord at work.
Yes, he feels sorry for us.
By no means high profile, but thank you for your kindness.
We appreciate you being here this morning. EJ, you have
you're wearing the hat.
Yeah, you've got the hat on. And I kind of
Branding.
It's branding, and that's
Right.
kind of what we wanted to talk with you about today, because going down that list of accolades, one that I had mentioned was Antique Aficionado.
Yeah.
And here locally and from off-camera conversations, seems like getting to be a little nationally known as well.
DK, maybe.
Well, I want to dive into your antique journey, and we may branch off into some other things, but you are someone who has taken that industry, at least here locally, I'm going to call it to another level by bringing in a few modern media practices.
Yeah, techniques,
practices. And I just wanted you to hang on, let me backtrack. I'm going to have to cut that.
How to get into.
Yeah, how to get into it. Let's see.
So just start with, before we talk about those, let's let the audience know how you got into antiquing.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So do I need to start that whole section over then?
No, I think you can cut right where you stopped talking and said we need to cut that and just come right in, because what you said was you've used new practices, techniques, etc. But before we talk about those,
There we go. Okay. There we go. Sorry. But before we get into all that, can you just start us from the base of your love of antiquing, all things old, all things that need new owners and new lovers? Just take us from the
what
beginning.
got you into that?
Sure thing. Well, it's small town American history. I love history. I love old stuff. Going to sound like a little bit of nerd here, but it is a nerdy field, and we're going to own it.
Yeah.
But when I was small, my grandmother actually loved antiques. Now, she didn't have a lot, but I was always intrigued by the stories that each one of those pieces told.
Yeah.
So kind of one of my taglines, even in the business, is every piece has a memory, or every piece has a story.
Right.
So early on, she would tell me where this stuff came from, either her grandparents, and I could imagine in my mind the time that those were prevalent,
Right.
Being used, those were being enjoyed, whatever the case may be. And that developed into a love for old cars.
Okay.
I like old cars, old hot rods. I love the thought of the 1950s diner, those sorts of things.
Yes.
And I've been building hot rods since before I had a driver's license. As a matter of fact, my very first car was a 1934 Plymouth.
Nice.
And I was 13 years old, and I brought it home in 7 pickup truck loads.
So it wasn't a full piece then.
No, I was driving it by the time I was 16.
Nice.
That's more of a common occurrence than you realize. My dad and I used to restore old tractors growing up.
Done
John
all of
Deere's.
that, yep.
Yeah, restored many tractors with my dad. We brought home a John Deere 430 in buckets on a gooseneck
Nice.
trailer before. So I'm akin to bucket belongings.
Did you need the gooseneck trailer for the buckets?
Yes.
There were that many
There
buckets.
were that many buckets.
Wow.
You know, you got your transmission, your rear end, everything.
That's
it's-
impressive.
Yeah, gooseneck
Love
trailer.
it. Love it. Got a few old tractors too, like that sort of thing. But anyway, that developed into, again, an even deeper love for history. I mean, it could have been automotive, motorcycle. I love antique motorcycles. I have a deep love and almost a passion, no passion before my Lord, but for local history.
Yes.
What developed our community into what it is. You may or may not know it, but did you know that Greenville, Tennessee was one of the first Harley-Davidson dealerships on the East Coast?
I did not know that.
I certainly didn't.
A man by the name of Bush Holly, who was a World War II veteran, and also was a Greenville policeman, had a Harley-Davidson dealership. He and my grandfather rode motorcycles together. I actually have in my personal collection an antique license plate that was on one of his Harleys.
Wow.
I'm
But
baffled right
I'm
now.
intrigued.
definitely worth, if you can Google search that, definitely worth some stories. Jerry Hartzell on Antiques on Depot has actually some of the paperwork originally where they were granted a charter for that Harley-Davidson dealership.
My goodness.
But
Here in
anyway-
Greenville, Tennessee.
That's right, Greenville, Tennessee,
Wow.
out there on McKee Street, almost at about Lake Street.
Greenville actually has a lot of checkered motorized history. A vehicle owned once by Adolf Hitler
Yep.
Yeah.
was discovered.
Know that story? Yep.
In what's now Creamy Cup, essentially. Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. Our little town has a big history.
Do you remember the movie Tucker?
No.
With the automobile that had 3 headlights and they turned with the steering wheel?
No, that's
They
unique.
never made it into full production, although
I do know what vehicle you're talking about. Yeah.
There was a dealership in Greenville.
Really?
It was across from where the Light and Power is now. However, the production ceased before they got a vehicle.
Now, was that in the Jones Hardware building that is now Rock City?
Somewhere right there.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly where, but I think
So there's also
that's
like a
about-
factory beside it that could definitely have been manufactured.
Might have been. Yeah.
Okay.
This would just have been like a sales dealership.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But I love stuff like that. Kind of dove into my undergraduate degree in history. I have a degree from Milligan in history. I specialized in American history, but also focused in ministry courses there.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to ministry, expected it probably to be a part-time endeavor. And then actually right out of college, had the opportunity to be a full-time youth pastor at City Creek Church of God in southern part of Greene County. So another story for another time. But
My dad calls that God's country.
that is God's country out there. Yeah,
Cedar Creek's a beautiful area.
Oh, it is.
It's a very beautiful area.
and also an eclectic history. But I love that history, and that's why I do what I do in the antique world, because every piece has a story.
Yeah.
And I can share the thought of history. I can share the thought of the love of that region. Actually, I'm in graduate school now at ETSU. I'm studying Appalachian Studies.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's really a degree about half public administration and half regional studies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm doing my master's thesis on Harmon pottery. Are you familiar with the
They're from Chucky, right?
Nope, that's that would be Decker pottery.
Okay, gotcha.
But Harmon pottery, they were involved. Some people in that area were involved with the bridge burning incident during the Civil War in Mohawk.
Oh, okay.
Long story. I don't know if you got time for that or not, but
I will talk about that off camera.
was
I'm
gonna
a
say
history
that.
junkie.
I'm ready to
myself.
hear that one.
Yeah,
One thing that you mentioned, and I don't want to gloss over it, your grandmother always had antiques.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so a lot of people would consider our great or grandparents hoarders. But I see a meme that pops up all the time, and it was really popped up when inflation really kind of started to ramp up. It said, "You all are about to find out why your mama kept your tin pans." And so, they could have easily been looked at on the outside as hoarders, but no, they went through the Depression where they had nothing. And so they realized once they did have something, like, I may use this again.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the
felt the
same
need to
way.
keep it.
I keep like pieces of wood and stuff. Like if I'm doing little obscure one-off woodworking projects, I'll have an offcut or something. I'm not throwing that away.
You're gonna need it
At some point, or at least that's what I keep telling myself, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think that's really important to note about that generation is no, they weren't hoarders. They just went without.
Yeah, they didn't have a lot.
And so once they got, they retained.
Good stewards, man. That's biblical.
Yeah, absolutely.
There does come a point though, and I'm going to say this: whenever we cleaned out my granddaddy's house, because my granddaddy lived through the Depression, he had boxes of things in his walls, in the walls,
Like behind the paneling or the sheetrock?
Boxes of like blenders and toasters. I'm like, Granddaddy, why are you keeping these boxes? Again, lived through the Depression, thought he might need them in his golden age too. But there is something about the preservation.
Oh, yeah.
I respect the preservation of the antiquing world. Again, I grew up restoring tractors with my dad, so that was our thing, and we specialized in antique tractors. But I have grown in my older age to respect a lot of things antique, not just tractors. But and again, like you, EJ, I respect the story.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That comes along with the piece. So for you, and I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this question, is it the piece itself or is it the story that you really find yourself getting attached to?
I think it's the story and the ideal. Maybe not the specific, like this one belonged to somebody, or it may be this genre of artifact represents a certain era or represents a certain cross-section of culture.
Yeah.
Also, I have the opportunity to work at the Reese Museum at ETSU. A cool story there. They actually gave me a scholarship to work with them. So that's kind of how I ended up at ETSU in the graduate studies program. But to work with those artifacts and to bring those stories to life, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And, kind of on a business standpoint of that too, I don't mean to jump ahead of your planned discussion.
No, you're fine.
to be able to make a living at that and to be able to bring in the economic aspect of that.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Because it's a niche market and, there's a small subculture of the population that enjoys those sorts of things enough to spend hard-earned money on them.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out, the ways of the market, the things that are selling. Unless you're actually in that market, you don't realize how hard it can actually be to stay ahead of the market.
Oh yeah.
What it is today is not what it was weeks or just a few months ago.
Right. And we're talking antique market, correct?
Antique market, absolutely. Yep. So you got to know what's selling well now. You got to know what was selling well. You got to be able to see ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Just all aspects of business that would be related to any other sector can be applied to the selling of antiques and collectibles. But
which is very, very interesting to me because obviously in like new commerce, that's everything that technology companies are doing. That's everything.
Everybody's trying to stay ahead.
Yeah, everybody's trying to stay ahead. So it's funny to me that even in something as old as antiquing, that you still have to look at those economic factors. That's very intriguing to me. Very intriguing because technology companies, they're doing that every single day by developing, new TVs, new phones, new et cetera, et cetera. And you're still doing that with things that have already been made and around for many, many years.
Not only been made and been around, you mentioned something off camera that I want to bring in here is the old stuff. The old stuff was not built to throw away.
Right.
It was built to last. It was built very well. In a lot of cases, by today's standards, would be considered probably over-engineered. But they were also simple. Like I have an old Massey tractor, and we were troubleshooting it the other day, and my father-in-law said, "Look, Jared, it's either fuel, fire, or air.
Yep,
that's it.
Internal combustion.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're not having to worry about like programming with the computer or troubleshooting a whole bunch of wiring and everything else.
Like you are the programming because you have to figure out those combination of variables there.
Yes, like I don't know. I'm drawn to the simplicity of the old stuff, but at the same time, like I think I try and make myself like in that era, and it's like, okay, this didn't exist. What about the mind that made this?
Yes, absolutely.
It didn't exist. So it's not like you're making a better mousetrap. No, by George, you're making the mousetrap. Yeah. It's like, so there were some very, very impressive minds of latter days.
Well, what's funny is if you think about the great minds and the great inventors of history, and I'm talking way far back, a lot of those dudes were suppressed because their stuff was too good.
True.
And that's not good for business. You think about it now, again, companies do not make products to last.
No.
They make them to be replaced because replaceable products are good for new
recurring
commerce.
Consumers.
You got a reoccurring problem. That means you've got reoccurring customers. There were many, many great minds that were suppressed at the time.
True.
Because their stuff was too good for business.
Yeah. Designed obsolescence.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's a big term.
Yeah.
And you don't see that in as much in vintage stuff. And that's why I do have a submarket of people who love old stuff who buy it to use.
Yeah.
Now, I'll show you some examples of that or give you some examples.
Yeah.
The case pocket knife.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
People want a case pocket knife from the 70s and earlier because they were made with carbon steel that sharpens and stays sharp.
Bingo.
Now they're made with stainless steel that looks pretty but will not hold an edge.
Right.
Yeah.
Other examples are Pyrex bowls. Pyrex bowls are extremely expensive now because there is a mid-century modern design to them, yet they're almost bulletproof.
Right.
Unless you intentionally break them, they're not going to break. They're not going to melt. They're not going to give you cancer.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things. People still like those sort of things to use. Old furniture.
What about cast iron?
Absolutely. Cast iron.
I've seen a big resurgence, at least in my circle of like, at least on social media. I'm like, dude, they're cooking on cast iron.
Yeah.
Dutch
Early
ovens.
cast iron, not modern cast iron. Actually, a little side note. Cast iron from the 50s, Griswold and Wagner from the 50s was made actually from a lot of times scrapped military implements.
Really?
That's cool.
Ships.
Okay.
Ships that were.
Sure.
Yeah.
That
a lot
had to
of
go
that
somewhere.
Came from.
I was going to say, if it's seaworthy, it's definitely oven-worthy.
Yeah. And, they forge it enough to where it's exactly what they need and tempered and whatever. But yeah, people will pay 4 times as much for a pan from 1950 as opposed to a modern pan that you can get at
Well, heck,
Walmart.
even the case knives. My dad still has one of my granddaddy's case knives. It's a super long, thin blade, and it's even thinner now because it's been sharpened 4 million times.
Right.
Started out as a normal pointed blade, but now it's literally like as thin as a pencil. But my dad still uses it daily.
Yeah.
So you mentioned history. You mentioned specifically you're kind of studying Appalachian history. I think I love our area, and maybe it's because we're local, but I hear the term redneck ingenuity, right? The local Appalachian family. Honestly, it probably had to do with lack of means. But they were so resourceful.
Absolutely.
You'll see some things where it's like total one-offs because Papa had to do this, that, and this just to make this thing work again, whatever. I don't know. That whole thing of our area and the people who settled this area and made this area what it is today were so, truly they were really intelligent and very resourceful.
Well, you know what one of the biggest factors in ingenuity is, don't you? Limitation. Limitation brings on big ingenuity.
Yeah.
That's why our people, the Appalachian people, were so intuitive because we didn't have a lot historically.
Yeah.
So through like you say, through that lack of having whatever resources, materials, whatever, we came up with ways. So limitations at that point in time breed ingenuity.
Yeah. Well, they say, what is it? Necessity is the. I have to cut this because I can't think of the quote.
I can't think of the saying.
Yeah, you're close, but that's not it either. It's something is the motherhood of invention. Necessity is the motherhood of invention, or something like that. It's basically you have a problem.
Yeah. So you have to come up with a solution.
You have to come up with a solution. But anyways,
we're blanking this morning.
But yeah, the whole area, super resourceful. They didn't throw things away, and they couldn't, a lot of cases, just run down to the store and replace it, fix it, whatever. They had to figure out a way right then and there in the field to fix it, to keep things going.
Yeah.
And I love that about this area.
And it wasn't a matter, oftentimes, it was no matter of convenience. It was a matter of survival.
Oh, that's true.
If I don't get this crop in the ground, it won't grow, and I won't be able to support my family.
Right.
True.
So, it's one of those things that if you have to, when it's a matter of life and death, you're going to figure something out.
Bingo.
And that's a lot about the region.
Trial by fire.
So oddly enough, I took a photo of the Bimberg plant up in Elizabethton. And I'd always been fascinated by I love old abandoned buildings, and they look really cool, especially of that age, of the industrial age. And I love the architecture of it, how things were just so well built. But anyways, I was doing a little bit of research, and I didn't realize that it was a German company that came and they made radon. But what they ended up finding in the Appalachian region was that the labor force was very reliable, but they caught on really quick. And I think that's a really common misconception on the outside looking in. Appalachian, everybody, the joke of
we're on the front porch with our washing machines.
Yeah, we don't have enough sense to get out of the rain. We're probably married to our sister. All these things, right?
They're about 2 teeth.
If you just knew how intelligent the people here are.
Oh yeah.
And just how logical they think. It's
the dad-burn farmers in our area. They don't exude like great mind at times, but when you start talking to one of them, oh my gosh, they are geniuses.
Common sense is what they've got.
Exactly. They have common sense. They have common sense that's actually applicable to daily tasks versus the most educated minds.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to kind of segue into this because your love of antiquing obviously started at a young age. And it truly is a passion. I believe that you have a passion for it.
Absolutely.
Just from the
Love
outside
it.
looking in. How did you turn that passion then into a business model? So I think I know how you eventually became Back Porch Antiques, but take us through that story because now we have the passion and you're able to turn it into a business. What did that process look like?
Okay, so this goes back a little bit further than you might think.
Okay.
Dude, I was selling stuff in elementary school.
Yeah. Okay.
I was the guy that
You've always been a dealer. We weren't a dealer.
Yeah. I knew
Hustler.
that if I had something somebody else wanted and I can pay a quarter for it and sell it for 50 cents, that I could make a living.
Capitalism.
Absolutely. Capitalism
That's
at
the
its
art of the
finest.
hustle.
But, and there's a fine line of ethics. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But so I started my eBay business when I was still in high school.
Yeah.
So I've been using the World Wide Web to finance my endeavors since really the eBay inception.
I love it. To have gotten on that eBay train then.
Yeah, and it has evolved. There have been times not for the good, in my opinion.
Sure.
I still use it often.
Yeah.
So that developed into a supplement for ministry because, like I told you, I went straight into ministry out of college.
Yep.
Yeah.
And ministry doesn't pay well sometimes.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Especially kind of at the beginning. I was well taken care of at certain times in my career, but in starting out, ministry is one of those things that if you can't do it for nothing, you shouldn't do it for everything.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out a way to make a living, and the Apostle Paul was a tent maker, so
you go.
EJ can sell junk.
Well, here's the reason ministry not paid well is because I don't think your pants are like torn and black enough.
Oh, maybe
your shirt is also not long enough.
Yeah,
you got to have the long, like raw edge.
Gotta
shirts.
have that.
That's where the big bucks are.
I got you. But anyway, so that started out. That line of work for me started out on eBay. And back then there was a thing probably before your all's time called the East Tennessee Trading Post.
I remember.
Y'all remember the Trading Post? It came out on Wednesday. It was a newspaper. Yeah. Came out on Wednesdays.
Vaguely, I remember that.
Selling cars, tractors, antiques.
It was Craigslist before Craigslist.
It was before Craigslist.
But it was in paper form.
And then developed Craigslist.
And now Facebook Marketplace.
Beautiful. But somewhere along the lines of 2000...
dating himself here.
2015.
Oh, okay.
Okay, not so long ago.
I started selling in a booth type setting.
Sure.
In a retail setting. I met Terry and Terrence Reed, who had started the Back Porch Antiques in 2016, I think, and I joined them later that year.
Terrence also, the son of Terry, me and Jared are good friends with. Terrence also has the art of the hustle.
Oh, yeah. Dude.
He's done it his whole life.
He's an expert of local furniture.
Yes.
He's an expert of local
pie
pottery.
Safes, the pie safes, I see that man. And the Crocs. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, wonderful antiquing mind.
He's an expert.
An all-around funny character, too.
He's a dude. So anyway, I joined those guys.
Okay.
And then they kind of want to focus on family a little bit more and not do that. So I ended up buying the business from them.
Okay.
And that was in 2020.
Yeah.
And it's at that point that I decided that I wanted to take that business into an ownership instead of a presence. They had laid the groundwork. They had designed the foundation. Right. But I wanted to focus on bringing a quality product to a much larger audience.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's when I started incorporating a heavy social media presence in both the Facebook world, Instagram world. Not and long YouTube. After we fell into YouTube.
There you go.
And YouTube has been good to us.
Our greatest love.
Yeah.
Our greatest love.
Really, when we first started out, I've got a friend, Daniel Rader. He's my guru.
Oh, we love Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel's a good one.
He's a good dude, very smart, very intelligent. Has
good looking too. Good looking dude.
He's got the detail-oriented mind that can make that work.
Well, he's a CPA for a living, correct?
I
numbers
think
guy. He's a numbers guy.
He's a numbers
guy.
Finance,
yeah.
Definitely finance
accounting
guy.
or
I think
something.
he's recently evolved into COO.
Nice.
Goodness.
I don't think he's bragging about that, but I'll brag on him.
I was going to say, we'll brag for him. That's little claps for that.
You got a C beside your name?
Little claps for that.
That's big time. So anyway, when we started the YouTube channel, he's like, "You think we got a chance?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. Let's try it."
Bingo.
But I knew that just by watching other YouTube channels, and I see these guys, and I was like, "Listen, if these guys have 4,200,000 million views, talking like that, not knowing what they're talking about,
we can at least
I think we got a shot."
Yeah.
So it's we started just like everybody else with a cell phone.
Yeah.
And he's developed into and he takes care of my my production. He's got a couple cameras and some lights and stuff. But again, started with a cell phone. And
how many subscribers did you start with? 0?
Yeah.
Really?
It
happens like that.
It happens like okay.
Yeah,
okay,
and then I
got
sent
you.
the invite to all my family, and then by like 2 days later, we had 14.
Beautiful.
So
using your network.
Everybody starts at the bottom.
Using your network.
But now another thing worth noting is that we had developed a significant following on Facebook and leveraged those followers.
Yeah,
when
you were able to migrate them.
Yeah, to start.
I remember that.
To start that YouTube channel.
I remember having discussions with Daniel about that migration process because he was asking us, like, do you think these people will actually come over and watch videos? I'm like,
get them over there, absolutely.
Yeah, all day long. If you can get them to understand, just to hit that subscribe and maybe even the bell. Maybe even the bell notification.
Maybe the bell.
There you go. And he's told me, he said, make sure to remind them.
Yes. But it's very important. And those people, they will be we call it the living room with YouTube. You have a living room. Those will be avid, weekly, daily watchers of your sitcom, basically. Your sitcom of Back Porch Antiques. Which, by the way, link in description if you've not seen Back Porch Antiques YouTube channel.
At the time of filming this, 4.13K.
4,130 subs.
That's impressive.
Little
like
claps
a good
for
number.
that.
That is
Little claps
impressive.
for that.
That
Thank
is
you.
very impressive.
Beautiful.
So you started with 0.
I did. We did.
Shocker.
Like everyone else. But I want you to speak to you being willing to put in the work, knowing that YouTube
A slow growth.
is a slow
It's a
play.
slow growth.
It is a slow play. It is a longer longer game in the return space. How did you keep, because there's mud first off, like you're getting super low views, super low engagement early on.
Takes a little bit of mental fortitude.
You've got to know the finish line is out there.
Yeah, I agree. And to us, it was multifaceted. Okay, I told you I was a lover of history. So one area of my concern with YouTube is obviously promoting my business, advertising of its own, getting things out there to be bought. But the other half of that is I wanted to document these pieces for history.
Bingo.
document them properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are there are a lot of people in our local region that know about a lot of the things that I talk about.
Yes.
But man, I've got followers across the world
Absolutely.
that want to learn about the primitive antiques or the specific areas.
Yeah.
So I knew that even if it wasn't financially rewarding right off the bat, that I was documenting these stories and these many history lessons for posterity, because it's going to be there. There are people who are still watching our first videos from a couple years ago.
Right.
And now they're beginning to do, to borrow a Dave Ramsey term, the snowball effect.
Bingo.
It's rolling and we're getting lots of views. I would say at about 6 months in is when I was knocked off my seat when somebody called from like New York City and said, hey, I saw your YouTube video and I saw this thing you've got on there. Do you still have it? Is it for sale? Well, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
so.
It hit me right in the mouth. I'm like, I just made $50 that I wouldn't have made if they hadn't saw my YouTube channel.
Bingo.
This is the glorious thing of YouTube.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about, we know that in the industry as evergreen content.
It's a hard sell though.
Evergreen content's a hard sell, but here's the thing. That's a video that you made one time. And let's just say it's a video that they watch and we'll just say 3 years old. Yeah. You made it one time 3 years ago.
Right.
And you're receiving dividends from it now. And it's not just going to pay you dividends one time, but it's going to have that same opportunity 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And then 3 years from then, and then 3 years from So evergreen content is so important, especially in the antiquing world.
Oh my gosh.
That content's never going to, no pun intended, grow old. It's never going to age or antique because those antiques will still be antiques, until the Lord comes back. But evergreen content is so important. So you have now seen the direct benefits of that long play mentality. Because somebody who would never have walked through your storefront.
Yeah, they're in New York.
Oh, yeah. So here's what YouTube has done for me. YouTube has developed me professionally. YouTube has taken me into a customer base that I would have never experienced otherwise. Right. There are literally people who will, and by the way, I'll preface it with this. YouTube has made my community and my fellow sector salespeople, my fellow antique stores, it's helped further develop the local market.
I was going to say it's probably raised the value, hasn't it? It's raised the value of the market.
There are people who, and again, I don't mean to brag. If it's good, it's God. If it's bad, I messed it up.
Right.
But
I like that.
There are people.
If that resonated, please write that down.
Bingo.
It's kind of my tag phrase. I told my wife to put that on my tombstone one day.
Beautiful.
But anyway, there are people who will take many vacations just to come to the Back Porch Antiques in Greenville, Tennessee.
What?
Because they saw it on YouTube.
There you go.
So not only does that offer sales for me,
right?
It develops lasting friendships.
Yep.
But it also develops economy for our local area.
Bingo. They're here. Guess what? They're going to have to eat.
Yep. They're eating. They're staying in a hotel. They're visiting the other antique
I was going to say,
stores.
they're probably going to go to other markets.
Yeah. And I have I'm big about, what's that term? When the tides rise, all the ships rise.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a little flyer at my store that lists all of our local stores.
There you go.
So when somebody comes in, it's like, hey, go check these guys out too.
Yeah.
So you see them as collaborators versus competition.
Absolutely. Well, and see, there's a regional economic thought there too. If people see Greenville, Tennessee as a mecca for antiques,
true,
then I'm gonna get more business because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, the tide rises, all the ships rise.
I love it. I love it.
So it's all good, and we do business together. I buy stuff from them, they buy stuff from me, and
sure,
and it's all good. But so there's that aspect. And there is an online sales aspect.
Okay.
I will oftentimes note the fact that, hey guys, the things that you've seen on my YouTube channel are for sale.
Yeah.
So if something you're interested in or you love it, just give us a call.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people call me and say, hey, you got that? Can you ship it? Yeah. I mean, I've shipped stuff to Europe.
Wow.
I've shipped stuff actually to Africa. And it takes a long time for stuff to get to Africa.
I would imagine so.
But I mean, it's really cool.
So do they actually purchase from your website, or do they call in and you just make sure you have it in stock? How's that process?
It's an over-the-phone purchase,
okay.
With credit card
sure
software
inventory's
company
there,
type thing.
those things.
Do you ever have the aspirations of maybe doing like an Etsy or something like that for the online?
It might be difficult to keep up with inventory, I would imagine.
Yeah, because most of our stuff is one-off.
True.
Right.
I don't have two of them, and it moves so quickly that it's
probably by the time you posted it would be sold in store.
And I've got 42 vendors in my store.
Okay.
And that's an aspect. A lot of the stuff in my store does belong to me, but I also have 42 vendors.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of a business note, some business talk. There's some things that in an antique store, if you're looking to aspire, you're an antique store owner, learn from my mistakes, but don't just let any vendors in.
Right.
Figure out what you want to be as a store and focus those vendors. As for us, we're not really interested in kind of your Hobby Lobby type stuff. I don't have enough square footage for that, so I want actual antiques, actual vintage things.
Right.
Okay. So those are the vendors that I focus on.
You mean you don't want distressed dressers that are gray washed and milk painted?
Chippy paint, modern,
chalk paint.
Chalk paint.
Sorry, chalkers.
Yeah, there's an awesome market for that. Don't hate me. But we just don't have enough square footage to cater to everything.
But that's important too, because again, and I'm about to go full Pentecostal and start running around this house right now, because you've talked about using social media, you've talked about leveraging an audience to migrate them to a new platform. Now you're getting into the topic of niching. Yeah. And I did not realize in the antique world, because I thought in the antique world, we want anything old.
If it's old, it's gold.
Right. But you're saying there is a benefit to niching and finding. See, I'm about to throw a fit right now. This is awesome.
Our store's kind of known for primitive antiques and really 19th century. Now we do have a couple mid-century dealers, which is pretty hot, but we're heavy on 19th century furniture.
Gotcha.
And one of the reasons I've marketed to that sector is because of what I mentioned earlier. I've got a lot of out-of-towners buying property here and moving in, and they want it to look like Appalachia.
Okay.
So I sell them Appalachia.
That's funny too, because again, we talked about this off camera a little bit, and even here on camera, Appalachia is typically seen as a little bit of the butt of jokes at times. But now we've got people that they want to be us.
Yeah.
Did you know
they see us and they want to be us?
A little bit of history. Some of the most valuable antique furniture sold was made in Greene County. In Horse Creek, there was a furniture maker called Bergner. And Bergner pieces will fetch over $100,000 on occasion.
I have Bergners in my family.
Yeah, I bet you can trace that back. Yeah,
they're all makers. They're all makers.
Yeah, you need a piece of Bergner furniture, come see me.
I probably can't afford it, but
but yeah, and another thing that I've learned on YouTube as well. There's a little bit of branding.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And one of my things, I don't always, but one of my things when I started, when I took ownership of the business, I wanted people to see me and remind them of the store. So I always wore overalls.
Yeah.
In a lot of my videos.
I remember that. I remember that.
In a lot of my videos, I'm wearing overalls. And I've had people come into the store and they say, "Is this the store owned by the guy in the overalls?"
Yeah, it sure is.
I'm like, yes.
So brand recognition.
Yeah. So I mean, just stuff like that. But it started out as kind of something fun and just testing the water. But YouTube's been good to me.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned something. You initially wanted it to preserve the history because history is important. We talk about this all the time. Have you ever played the telephone game? Or it's called the telephone game, like where you put kids in a circle. Yeah, right. By the time it gets to the other end, it's normally nowhere near what it started out as.
It's a different story.
You're kind of the same way, in my opinion, with history.
Yeah.
If you're not catching it firsthand,
you're
going to catch a watered down, maybe not totally accurate second-hand version. And then if it doesn't come there, it's going to be third-hand, all of those things. So you're basically literally one heartbeat away from that story not being able to be told again in that particular facet. So that's really important.
So confession time involving YouTube. I have had to go back upon learning further information on certain pieces and put in some comments or notes at the YouTube video and say, hey, a little correction here. I might have been a little bit off on my description.
I think that's okay, though. That shows your audience that you're transparent.
Yeah,
and you care.
And there's truth there. So
absolutely,
there's truth there, and I think, at least for me as a lover of all things YouTube, I find it very, very comforting whenever a creator does come back and say, "Hey, I was wrong when I said this, but I want to give you the proper information out." To me, as an audience, I'm like, this dude's being transparent with me, he's being honest with me. So that and further invests me in that channel at that point in time, because I know that, hey, we're all human, we're going to make mistakes. But if you're willing to correct that, I trust you.
Well, yeah, I agree. One thing I don't know a lot about are algorithms and things like that concerning YouTube.
Well, they're changing every day, every second.
That's also why you have
Daniel's my guy. Daniel's my guy on that. But one thing I have learned about that, at first, if you're going to have a YouTube channel, there's going to be some hecklers.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be some haters.
We deal with them.
And, Daniel told me right off the bat, he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, a comment's a comment.
Yeah, just keep going.
That's numbers. That's
engagement.
That's engagement. So we have a lot of fun with it. I had a guy the other day, it's kind of side note, it's funny. It's like I was wearing a red shirt and my overalls. He said, the only reason that I clicked on this is because the dude looked like Mario.
Nice.
So my response was, next week I'll wear green.
I'll be Luigi.
Beautiful.
But anyway.
You are going to have hecklers, though. But the thing that I've noticed, too, with your guys' channel, and again, this goes back to your mind and then the greatness of Daniel's mind, you guys have kept a very, very consistent look across the YouTube page.
Intentional.
Very intentional because, again, algorithms enjoy that. Viewers enjoy that.
Right.
They know whenever they come to your page, oh, yeah, it's a Back Porch Antiques video.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you guys have done a great job with that, just on the outside looking in and giving you an unsolicited audit here.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good on the branding.
Thanks, man.
Yes.
I don't know that it was intentional, but we tried. That part I think was intentional.
I was going to say, I know with Daniel, that was definitely intentional.
I want to pivot us here. So you're talking about YouTube. We've talked about how you got into antiques. This is Faith and Frame, so I want to basically...
And we are sitting here with a preacher.
Preacher,
by the way.
So I think it's important for people, especially Christian people, to understand that whether you're on a YouTube channel and physically being watched or not, people are always watching you.
Oh, yeah.
And so your life is constantly being...
You're under the microscope.
Yeah, by someone, especially if you're a self-proclaimed Christian.
Yeah.
People are watching you, and so they pay attention to how you react to situations.
How you react to those hecklers, EJ?
Yeah, no.
How you react to those hecklers.
I haven't told anybody to jump off a bridge yet.
Well, there you go. That's a good thing. I would kind of like to get your input because obviously you started as youth pastor, and I think now you're...
I'm actually
youth pastor?
I'm not. No,
you're senior pastor now, aren't you?
I was. I'm actually worshiping at the First Church of God in Greenville now.
Okay, gotcha.
But
you have pastored. I mean, you have pastored.
Yep.
So, but I think where Jared's going with this is you're always under the microscope, and especially as someone again with the resume that you have.
Oh yeah.
You're a public figure here locally. Store owner, YouTuber, again, overall good guy. So projecting that to the masses, you're going to be under the microscope.
Oh yeah.
So where were you going with your
question?
So
my whole thing is like, okay, our pastor calls it, lifestyle ministry, right? It's like, I want someone to, my prayer is that, or even if I just interact with you across the counter, you're the person checking me out at the quick stop, whatever. I want something that I did, something that I said
To be different.
To be different and to where at the very least it's thought, that guy was different. I watched this dude cut him off, and he handled it, you know what I'm saying? Like he's cool with it.
Why is he so happy when people are heckling him on YouTube?
And so, people see it like when you're in a valley of life, like maybe you just experience a death, like the way that you're able to navigate those waters, people are watching you.
Oh, yeah.
I think I would like to hear your perspective on the importance of knowing that someone's always watching you.
So that's a very good point, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to touch on it.
You can go as deep as you want. You don't even have to just barely touch on it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. So current level of ministry is I get to serve as the chaplain for the Greenville Fire Department.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoy working with emergency service.
Golly, I forgot that on the resume.
Yep. That's okay. No worries.
Fire department.
Yeah, but and I enjoy working with those guys. But through that, I also get to see oftentimes people at their absolute worst.
Yes.
I get to participate sometimes in things like death notifications.
Yes.
Total loss of homes, things like that. And even, and I got to be careful how I say this because I want to be truthful, but even at people's worst moments, and sometimes, especially at people's worst moments, they're crying out for something real.
Yeah.
Right.
And you and I as Christians,
something solid to cling to.
Right.
You and I as Christians know that that's Christ.
Yes.
That the truth of the matter is in the one who died for us.
Right.
But I get extreme amounts of opportunity to show that in the line of work that I'm in. And the reason is that I am oftentimes invited to people's homes to buy out estates or to buy things from them that they have no idea about.
Right.
Okay. And I'll preface my story with saying this. If you're going to live right in this line of work, it will cost you money.
Right.
True.
But what amount of profit is worth perjuring your soul for?
Yeah.
There's scripture for that. The answer is zero.
Yeah.
There are times, and again, if it's good, it's God. If it's bad, I messed it up. So I'm not taking any glory for this. But if you're going to be in this line of work, if you're going to be a picker, and you're going to be a Christian, I would even go so far as to say if you're not a Christian and you're going to be in this line of work and you want to do it for more than a year or two, you would prescribe to this train of thought.
Some ethics.
If somebody is uncomfortable with with an offer you've given them for something, back up and make sure they're comfortable before you make the deal.
Right.
An example was I talked a little bit earlier about Harmon Pottery.
Yeah.
I went to a guy's house, a friend of mine, and the reason he called me, he said, EJ, I know you'll tell me the truth. I was like, absolutely, And of course, my running joke is, all the profit in the world is not worth going to hell over.
Right.
Yeah. And everybody jokes about
true,
it.
very true.
We have a good time. But he had a Harmon pot there.
Okay.
And I said, hey, what about that pot? And he's like, $20 and it's yours. I was like, no, I can't do that. And he's like, why not? And I was like, it's worth a lot more than that.
It's worth like $500.
Yeah. He said, what would you give me? I said, I'll give you $500 for it. Right. And he about fell over.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, I'm not saying that to brag on me, but what I'm saying is if I would have bought that for $20, and then he would have came into my store and
seen
saw
$500 on the tag,
probably like $650.
Well,
yeah.
He would have lost all faith in me, which it's not about me, but then he would have said, that guy claims to be Jesus.
You don't hurt your witness.
Absolutely. So you got to be really careful.
Yeah.
Also, if you get the opportunity, if you accidentally hit a good lick, and I've done that before, buy out a bunch and there's a piece in there that's worth $500 and you paid $20 for the whole lot. Go make it right a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
I think there's something to that, though. Our preacher, John, he talked about this actually very recently. He said, you're not always going to come out ahead on every deal.
You don't have to either.
Right, you don't have to. You don't have to come out ahead on every deal. At the end of the day, the Lord's going to take care of you. But I think that instant profit, though, again, going just back to this whole episode about the long play mentality.
Yeah.
Had that man walked into your store and let's just say he saw $650 on the price tag for that piece of pottery and you bought it for $20, not only is that going to affect him, he's probably never going to buy from you again, but strictly on a business level, he's going to go tell all his buddies.
Well, let's say for this sake of this instance, that guy's not a believer.
Yeah, let's say he's not a believer.
And that was the case.
And, so he's not a believer.
Yeah.
So on a spiritual level, you've lost all
probably
trust.
a believer, but not, heavily involved in church.
But on a spiritual level, you've lost all belief in the one that you claim to be representing at that point in time.
Yeah.
Trickle that down to the business level, you have then lost future reoccurring business, not only from him, but from his network, because he's going to tell all of his friends. So at the end of the day, did you really lose money by doing the right thing?
No,
I don't think so.
not.
I don't.
Well,
think
I mean,
so.
I made profit on, and I'm upfront with people. I said, I do this for a living. I have connections. I have marketing abilities.
You gotta make.
I've paid a lot of money to get here. I've paid a lot of time to get here. I have to make a little money.
Yeah.
As long as you understand that.
Yeah.
And I've got I've got a percentage rule that I go by or try to work off in my head and those sorts of things. But that guy specifically, he and I are still friends. But and there are people in this line of work that will justify that action by saying, well, he priced it.
True.
If I hadn't bought it, somebody else would have.
That's a fact.
Yes, but
but you were the one that he was interacting with that day.
To go a little biblical, just because that's the way the world would behave, doesn't mean that's the way us as Christians should behave, because we're not of this world.
Right.
So we don't behave and copy that Romans chapter 12 kind of mentality.
Well, and again, he wasn't interacting with the other guys that day. He was interacting with EJ, who claims to be a Christian.
And again, I may not make as much money in the long run, but hey, there's no price worth perjuring your witness for.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So
I can agree with that.
In this line of work, if I can caution anybody, and Satan will tempt you.
Oh,
there's going to be those times when money's tight, and then that
a fat
amazing deal comes in
fat
that you
deal
could just
comes by.
You get $1,000 piece for $5.
Yeah, but you gotta you gotta do what's right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
like I said, people are always watching.
Yeah, they're always watching,
and you probably even, I don't know the multiplication, but at least doubly as a pastor, or even more scrutinized and watched by the public. I mean, so like they're always waiting on you to, I'll call it, mess up, so that they can say, "Ha, hypocrite,"
Gotcha.
and it's like, and I'm gonna mess up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for anyone who is waiting on Garrett Benjamin Ware, he's gonna mess up pretty soon. So you ain't gonna be waiting long. Don't worry.
Right. So, but it's really important because, and I guess we can round it out with this. Like I've been to funerals where not really sure where that person stood, and those are really sad, intense funerals.
Yeah, those are tough.
But the happiest funeral, if you can even put those two words together in a sentence, the happiest funeral I've ever been at was Johnny Mack's, one of our deacons,
and Luke Buchanan.
The freedom sitting in the congregation, and yes, there were tears, yes, there was sadness, but
I think a lot of those were tears of joy though, because they knew
John
where they
got
went.
up and he goes, Johnny Mack done preached his funeral with his life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's already there. He lived it.
Yeah.
And so there's no question, but I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say is that, you've got to always be aware that people are watching you, and you may open up an opportunity that you didn't even know from a witness perspective, the way that you respond to a situation.
Yeah.
They see that you responded differently. It's like, dang, he didn't get all upset and cuss this dude out. Something different about this guy. And so it's just planting seeds that you may not even be the harvester of.
Yeah, Johnny Mack made John's job as a preacher easy that day. Folks, make your preacher's job easy for your funeral. Don't make him make up stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but no, I mean,
Johnny Mack really did. He lived it, and so it made John's job easy. I know that's kind of a funny thing, but in all seriousness, also too, I can say in my life personally. So I've known you for a very long time, since way back at the gym days. At the Y was my first encounter with you, and even back then when I was off in my rebellious phase of teenage and high schoolness. You were a good example. You may not even know that, but you were an example, and I appreciate that. And further, down the years now that we've reconnected through business, through YouTube, through, just both being from the area, you continue that. You have been very consistent. Yeah. And I can say that again from the outside looking in.
Again, if it's good, it's God. If it's bad, I messed it up.
Well, and I appreciate you though for being that example and letting him live through you.
Kind of you.
Yeah.
Like I said, you may plant a seed. It's very likely that you'll plant a seed that you won't be the harvester of. But I mean,
I sure hope so.
So think about though, like, it's hypothetical, but think about you get to heaven one day, some person you've never thought about knowing walks up and is like, thank you. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's something to always be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. In ministry, especially student ministry.
True.
Over time, I was on staff at Cedar Creek as their youth pastor for almost 10 years.
A lot of youth went through there.
Oh yeah. I mean, there'd be times we'd have 150 on a Wednesday night.
Nice.
In, a little country church. And
well, you're now, I'm going to call him your YouTube business partner, Daniel. That was the church he grew up in.
Yeah, it was a pupil.
Yep, absolutely. He and his wife. And
many others.
But there have also been those that just fell off the wagon. And as a type A personality who desires perfection,
right,
and is very much human, I see that, and it's easy to say, "Oh man, I failed that kid."
Yep.
Yeah.
But then I realize, and I'm convicted with the fact that I delivered, hopefully, what I feel like God laid on my heart,
right.
And I think they'll never forget that, because those spiritual moments that they had, they were real.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Now, there might have been, there might be times that they question that, or maybe they turn their backs on that without getting too theological. But they'll never forget it.
Right.
Those are unforgettable moments.
Right.
So just to have been a part of that, invaluable.
Yeah.
That seed's still in the ground. Think about like forest floors. Tons of seed in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Right? Seed may literally be in the ground for years, decades.
Yeah.
All it needs, a little water, a little bit of sunlight to
And
hit it.
there's
A little bit of
Bible on
input.
that.
Boom.
Need a little bit of input. EJ, we cannot thank you enough for being a guest.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored. I appreciate it.
I don't think I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction here. I don't believe this will be our last encounter with EJ here on Faith and Frames. I would love to have you back for some other discussions.
Sounds fun.
Tip of the iceberg on a lot of things. Yeah.
Yes. Tip of the iceberg on a lot of things. But we do. We appreciate you. Again, thank you for being the example here locally.
Yes.
Nationally, since you are a YouTube sensation.
Yep.
For being the example for everyone, even outside of Greene County. Jared, before we do totally tell everybody goodbye, there are some things that our listeners can do that we greatly appreciate.
Yep.
They certainly help the podcast. What are those things? If you've enjoyed EJ's episode here, what are some things they can do?
Well, first off, head on down to Back Porch Antiques. It's across from the new ECU building.
Spend all of your money. Actually,
Spend
don't
all
do
your
that.
money.
Spend a lot
maybe
of money.
you're just maybe you can offer local historical facts on pieces that maybe you didn't even know.
Listen, we've got a loafing corner. You come, we'll talk about old stuff.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Have
a loafing
coffee.
corner.
Yeah.
For all you northerners or anyone who is not educated, loafering.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Loafering is a pastime that we certainly enjoy here, which is basically just doing nothing but sitting and talking.
We do a lot of that.
But
yeah, go check out EJ. Check out his YouTube channel. Support him in any way.
Links in description below.
Links will be in the description.
Much obliged.
In regards to us, feedback.
Stars
Any and
and
all
bars.
feedback. Give us a rating. Give us a review. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Any of those things. We appreciate it. We read all the comments, and they mean the world to us.
Even the bad ones.
Absolutely. Sometimes those are the best ones.
We want them all. Jared, here's the hard part.
Nope. We'll see you later.
Y'all have a good one. EJ, thank you.